Hi, I'm Dhruti Shah, and this is my podcast, Have You Thought About? I'm a writer who loves to find out about what passions people are pursuing, especially if they're managing to blend together their skills in unusual ways. In each edition, I'm chatting with someone I find particularly interesting and who's managed to fit things together in their life or profession that you might not think of as an obvious match. Here, I'm joined by Professor Rebecca Killick, a leading statistician whose work dives deep into one of the most fascinating areas of data science, non-stationary time series. And that's all about data that changes its behaviour over time. It's quite common, but Rebecca will go further into it. Now, Rebecca's a professor in statistics at Lancaster University, spent time in California. Rebecca is doing loads. We first met through the UK Young Academy. Non-stationary time series. This sounds very clever, but what is it?
Thanks, Judy, for having me on. Non-stationary time series is where data is collected over time. It could be things like temperatures that's collected every day or every few minutes. It could be observations on patients in hospitals. It could be, sales of different products. It's anything that's collected over time. And what we're looking at is how the properties of that data change over time. So the non-stationary just means that the properties don't stay constant over time. So you do have kind of things that are changing and evolving as time progresses. And so that's my area of research. I kind of look into all of these intricacies and think about how they might evolve in different settings.
How did you even find this in the first place?
That's a good question. Actually, back at the start, so I did my PhD in non-stationary time series, and I was one of those people where when I was thinking about doing a PhD, I had no idea what I wanted to do at all. I was there like, how can I choose what area I want to research in statistics when I haven't seen most of them? So I was super lucky that there was an option of two different, they're called case studentships to work with companies. And I was reading through the descriptions of what you might do. And for me, I'm very application motivated. So I don't just do maths for maths' sake. I have to have a real application behind it. So I understand why I'm creating new methodology, why I'm doing the maths that I'm doing to be able to solve problems in the real world. And so these case studentships were ideal for me because they allowed me to work on a real problem. And the one that sounded most interesting to me was working on renewable energy sources. And so that just happened to be this non-stationary time series approach. That's kind of how I got into it.
This sounds amazing, but also not something you can just focus on for a short period of time. It really involves commitment, right? In order to spot the trends and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. If you have short amounts of data, then you're not going to be able to see really how things are evolving. So, for example, if you've got temperatures over a very short period of time, you're not really going to be able to see how they evolve. You can kind of think of this as if I just looked at January temperatures, I wouldn't be able to see how they vary across the whole year. And we all know that, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, higher temperatures in the summer, colder temperatures in the winter across kind of December, January, February time. And so if I only observed January, I wouldn't be able to see the full range of what's going on. And so this is kind of that you need data at certain levels to be able to, or certain amounts of periods of time to be able to see how things are evolving.
So AI must be in your bag, these suite of tools. I mean, I'm actually quite interested to find out if there's anything you do that's old school without using like AI tools.
So there's a range of different techniques that we use. AI is obviously part of that toolkit now. We are developing new methods that take advantage of the advances in AI that have happened over recent years. But fundamentally, everything starts for me with the basic understanding. So it was kind of in the 50s and 60s is when the time series analysis really started as a discipline. And so there's a lot of rich stuff coming out of there. One of my previous professors, Granville Tunnicliffe-Wilson at Lancaster, is a wealth of knowledge on things like that, because whenever I come up with have a real sticking point, I love to go and chat to him, because he'll go, oh yeah, have you read this paper from 1963? And I'll be there like, no, because it's not available online. So no, I haven't read it. And so he really always draws me back to a lot of the fundamentals that maybe as information is growing, as we learn more about any subject area, you can't learn absolutely everything because it would just take too long. So you have to pick and choose what things you learn. And so some of those things that maybe were deemed not important to carry forward from the past now are becoming super important in this new kind of data-rich world. And so I find it really interesting being able to pick some of these things from the past and go, this can be used in a different way now. And so maybe people thought in the past it wasn't as useful, and so have kind of dropped it from the knowledge transfer in that sense to younger generations. So yeah, I find that really interesting.
I mean, in my head, I was thinking about, those scarves that people
Yeah,
make, the climate scarves. Is that the sort of thing that you'd have like a really, 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 really long one, like in different colours, marking how things have changed? Or am I just taking it into a very
exactly.
layman's world?
No, exactly. So if you think about it in that context, you've got this scarf, you might start off with, you've got the yearly pattern of temperatures, as I said, higher in the summer, lower in the winter. And then as you move through time, you might see those patterns change. So it could be that, the summer might be getting longer, you might be getting higher temperatures for longer periods of time, or maybe the winter is getting shorter or milder, not as cold. So you'll be seeing, as you create that scarf across many, many years, you're maybe saying, oh, I'm not using this color anymore that I used to use, or, oh, I rarely used to use this color, but now I use it loads. Or the really scary one, which is I need to introduce a new color because maybe temperatures are increasing too much. And now I'm like, oh, I've never had to use this extra color, but now we've got a temperature that I've never seen before.
Wow.
Yeah, things like that.
But because the data can be from anywhere, what are your favourite places to actually play in?
As a neurodivergent academic, I love, and I think this is one of the great things about math is you get to play in everybody else's backyard. So I have the pleasure of being able to learn about so many different areas of science, of daily life, of everything. And I get to take my maths box that I have, the things that I'm interested in math, and use it in all of these different areas. So I've worked in stuff from like linguistic data, thinking about how people's accents change your perception of them when they say different things. That was super interesting. I've worked in reducing use of animals within clinical trials and things like that, trying to reduce the number of animals by using statistics to be able to monitor them and have less stress on the animals. That one was a really interesting ethical conundrum for that, whether I wanted to work on data from those types of animals or not. I do a lot of environmental stuff, so I love working with trees and soil and climate data and all of those sorts of things. That I would say is one of the big passions. When I first learned that trees shrink overnight, that blew my mind completely. I was just like, wait a minute, I did not know this as an individual. Like I see trees all the time, but if it's warm, then trees can shrink overnight into the width of their trunks. And so learning things like that just always fascinates me. And then I do a lot of stuff in digital health as well, so trying to support people who are maybe living by themselves as older adults or with long-term conditions, helping them manage their lives as their disease progresses, or they are recovering from surgery or recovering from hospital stays, things like that. So I'm particularly passionate at the moment about the environmental side and also the digital health side, just because I can see it can have such wide implications in our world.
This is amazing. Like, are you ever able to like switch off, or is it that everything becomes a stimulus point because of the fact, the neurodivergence, but you're in such a vast and it can't stop. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Everything has I guess, a data point. Like, how do you
exactly.
switch off?
It is really, really hard. Like whenever I talk to new people in different disciplines, or seeing something in the real world where I'm just there like, that doesn't work efficiently, but I could fix that. It's really, really hard to try and focus in and not take on too many projects. If anybody like invites me to a new area of the world I've not into, or a completely new application and just spark something in my brain, I'm there. I'm going to be working on that. But I do have to be super careful with my time, and I'm not very good at that. So I am trying to be better.
Oh, the irony. Now, you've just come back from California. So what was going on there? You were there just for the weather, or actually what you're up to?
Yeah, so I was super lucky. I got a 1 year visiting position at University of California, Santa Cruz. And so that was incredible because the university's just set out of the town centre. So it's a bit like Lancaster. They have a similar aged university. Both are set outside of the town centre. Difference is the weather. So I hadn't quite appreciated that you could have a place that had more Goldilocks weather than we do. So it never gets cold and it never gets too hot. It's always kind of in that middling range. And I thought the UK was pretty Goldilocks in terms of not getting too cold and not getting too hot. But it was incredible. I absolutely loved working with the faculty there, and the life in Santa Cruz was very different, very, very different from the UK, and I very much enjoyed it. But as always, there's always positives and negatives. So I love being able to get down to the beach every day and see the sea lions on the wharf. That was like one of my huge highlights, because I love nature, and being close to the redwood forest was incredible. The fact that I had to hike through the forest to get to my lectures when I was teaching that was a huge positive for me. Like, I was just like, I get to hike through a redwood forest while I'm going to my lectures. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
It sounds like you're trying to make the most of that experience. And maybe, is it because it was time limited? Is there anything you tried that was completely out of your comfort zone, apart from hiking through redwood forests, maybe?
I went surfing. I'd never done that before in my life, never done that before. And I'm also not a person that would go in the ocean. So I have Raynaud's disease. It's very difficult for me. I have to be very careful about regulating my core temperature. But I went and tried surfing, which was interesting because it happened actually on one of the top 10 surf days of the year, which is not a day to go as a beginner. But I had so much fun. But I'm not going to turn into a surfer anytime soon.
You say that, but and you're talking about sort of traveling around the world. Is there anywhere else that your path has taken you that perhaps was a bit unexpected to younger you?
One of my favourite trips was I was on a British Council trip out to Israel, where it was my first kind of conference where I was the only statistician there. And the conference was about learning from researchers in Israel about how we do water conservation. Because in the UK, obviously, we're getting warmer temperatures, and so we are maybe experiencing, especially in the south, a lot more droughts, and we need to protect crops and things like that. And these are challenges that we haven't really had to think about very much before in the UK. So we kind of had a British Council trip of researchers over to Israel to learn about how they do their farming in a very water scarce situation. So that was super interesting. We got to tour some interesting research farms, looking at new ways to water crops and produce crops that uses the least amount of water. So there's a lot of learning there. And it was like a wide set of different disciplines.
And I mean, clearly you've got this impressive career taking in statistics and more, but what's helped you navigate that pathway? And what advice would you give to others who are thinking about it?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think the biggest thing that's enabled me to be able to do the things that I've done in my career has been my now husband, because without him being able to be a constant and actually being able to step up at home, having 50-50 partnerships on the housework and with the children and things like that, I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the things that I have been able to do in terms of traveling and also taking on senior positions within the UK and worldwide. That's been one of my constants. So I think surrounding yourself with support that enables you to do both the personal goals that you want whilst balancing the career goals. I think having somebody who is supportive of that that you can obviously equally support them in their career goals, but balancing with their personal goals as well. But having that kind of ability to have people around you that will actually support you to do what you want to do, I think is one of the most important things for me in my career. Because especially the early days, there's a lot of uncertainty when you're doing a PhD. You're not sure if you're going to get a job afterwards, and then when you do get a job, if you're in academia, you're often in short-term contracts, and so it can be challenging. And sometimes you have to move around a lot for different jobs depending on the field that you're working in. So having a good support network that can actually help you through all of that is super important. The other thing I think that keeps me going is just doing something that I actually enjoy. So one of my favorite things is being able to help people solve problems. And whether that is on the short term, somebody comes to me with something and I said, oh yeah, I know a technique that will be able to help you with that. Here it is. Whether it's as simple as that, or whether it turns into actually, we don't know how to do that yet, so we maybe need to develop some more mathematics to be able to solve your problem. Either way, I get so much joy from just helping people. And so that really keeps me motivated and keeps me going forwards in that respect. So I think the big things I would say to people trying to get into this area is find something that you enjoy. And when I say that, it's not like when I first started doing it, I enjoyed it. It's more the enjoyment, at least for me personally, built up over time. It was as I started to learn more and things. So you do need to kind of give it a little bit of time to see if that's something that you would enjoy. There's also benefits to switching areas as well. So if you find something that maybe you're thinking, I'm not getting much inspiration from this, it's not really bringing me a lot of joy. If you want to stay in research, it doesn't necessarily have to give up research completely. You can switch research areas. It's hard, but I know people who've done it very successfully. It's like finding that thing that will get you out of bed in the morning. And I know that's pretty common advice, but it's certainly kept me going over many years.
Slightly left field here, but time clearly plays a huge role in your life and work. How do you end up having a little bit of fun when it comes to those elements of time? Are you constantly giving like clocks as gifts and stuff?
I'm actually kind of anti-clock, which is interesting in that respect. For a long time, I refused to wear a watch or check the time and things. I get a lot of time blindness, so being reminded of the time it can be a stressor in my life. It's interesting in that respect. Yeah, my whole life is time, but time is a constant source of anxiety, I think. Yeah, definitely.
I think that's absolutely brilliant, and also very unexpected, because you'd think you'd be proper pro time.
Yeah, pro time. That's fine. Yeah.
Is this something that you'd want your kids to get into, or how do you get, I guess, I'm not even going to say younger people, I'm going to say others. How do you bring them onto a journey where they might think this is quite complex, but then, as you said, you've broken it down and it makes a lot of sense? But how do you approach it in the first instance with people?
All of it stems from a curiosity. So I've always been like interested in, well, why is it like that? Not necessarily the whole how it works, which is maybe more towards engineering, but it's like, well, why does that work? Why does that work? And for me, the big thing of trying to get into areas is, I kind of say this a lot for people. You can say, I want to learn about this area, but why do you want to learn about that area? What is motivating you to do that? And so for me, my motivation comes purely from solving problems. So if I want to learn something new, it's because I have a problem that I want to solve. And so when you're trying to get into something, you can, I think, thinking about it in terms of, I might want to get into this area. Why do I want to get into that? It could be because I find it interesting and ultimately would like a job in that area, in which case maybe don't follow a strict pathway. Sometimes you can follow one module to the next, to learning about this, to learning about that, but follow what interests you, because reading about lots of different things is interesting, and that's kind of what gives me the ideas and drive to go forwards. When I was a lot younger, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I came all the way up through school having no idea and thinking about going to university, and my mum just said, well, you're good at maths, why don't you just go do that? And then it kind of all stemmed from there, because I didn't really think about